I'm Clint, and welcome to Swatches Art Livestream number 109. In this episode, we're going to be reviewing 4 different images for the Fairytale art challenge we have going on called First Star to the Right. But we're going to cover some announcements to let you know about some different things going on here in Swatches, and we'll allow people a couple of minutes to join in before the review gets started. If you are joining in live, feel free to put in comments in the live chat. If you have questions, toss them in there and I will try to answer them during the course of the program. We do not have any guests with us today. Normally we have Anna or Nito with us. It's just me today. Just thought I'd keep it simpler. We're going to have a shorter episode anyway. So, also, if you're joining in live, hey, just out of my curiosity, put in where you're coming from. I think we have about half of the viewers actually come in from out of the United States, where I am. And so it's always kind of neat to see where people are joining in from. Keoki, hello, welcome. Good to see the chat's working. I think everybody else is doing okay with the programs. Okay, so let's get into the announcements. Guys, we've actually got a sponsor on the channel. We've got a sponsor for this episode. It is Skillshare. It actually makes me kind of like, I'm not sure what to think, because I remember when we started the channel and nobody would ever sponsor what I was putting out originally. But Skillshare is deciding to sponsor this episode. If you're not familiar with them, they are an online education platform. These are guys that I have mentioned before as being a good resource for some good art education classes and that sort of thing that is not hard on the budget. And they are offering the first 1,000 people to use the link provided also in the description of the video. You can find it down there. And the first 1,000 people to do that will get a free trial premium membership. Now, I'm especially interested in mentioning them because I actually put my longest class educational material out on their site. It is Illustrating Commissions, the Professionals Process. If you're not aware of this, this is the material that I made back in the summer, and it is me teaching you how to go through the entire creative process on something that uses an outline. I was saying commissions, but this could work for art challenges and art contests as well. I'm going to just pull up the page. It looks like this out there on Skillshare, Illustrating Commissions. It has approximately 5-minute video segments. That's the way it normally works on Skillshare. Now, if you're out there on Skillshare, all you need is a membership and you have access to their entire library of materials. So this is great because normally this material is over $30 and you can get a free trial membership and actually watch the whole thing through the click through. For me, that's a win-win. And you can look at the rundown here. We go through all kinds of stuff, how to read the outline, what notes to take, gathering reference images, doing value studies, composition studies, color studies, all of that sort of thing. And it will keep track of which lesson you're on and bring you back to it, when you come back. So we are very happy to have Skillshare sponsoring the video today. Go check it out if you haven't. And I'm out there. I'm not just looking at art stuff myself. I'm using it. I'm actually looking at some stuff on keyboards and piano, because I played as a kid, but I haven't really played much as an adult, and I'm wanting to get back into that. So I'm watching and following some classes on that subject. So cool stuff. Thanks so much, Skillshare, for joining us there. I need to move Photoshop's window a little bit because it is covering chat. There we go. Class is excellent. It's packed full of info. I'm still not all the way through it. Well, thank you, Keoki. Yeah, we've got some excellent feedback that people have left on that class, saying that they've found it very beneficial, well worth their time. I am planning some more materials, some more classes to put out there. I really like the way that they're back into the site and the way that it works between the teachers and the site. So look forward to some more material going out there. Not immediately. For the next couple of weeks, I already have things planned, but after that, I hope to. There is a new video coming out on Monday. I have a video on black and white to color. This is just some tips about how to do that process better. I'm not covering the entire thing. There's a lot of videos out there on the topic. But this one is just some understanding of common mistakes people run into and some things that you need to understand in order to get around those problems. It's about 12 minutes long, but that'll premiere on Monday. That's already finished up. I'm just trying to stagger the videos a little bit. If you're not already joining us in the community, there is the Discord. You can see the link right there. I think I have it in the description too. And you can just go there and follow that. And you can join with us out there. We have all kinds of stuff out there. Those places to share your artwork and just get some positive feedback. Or if you were looking for feedback from without like what to change, you just wanting emotional feedback, then we've got rooms for that, sharing resources, all that sort of thing. You can find that. And if you need to schedule a one-on-one hour consult with me, you can do that at art-mentor.com. My schedule is a little scattered through the holidays, but there is still, I still think I have some days open up between now and the end of the year. Then certainly after the new year, there'll be plenty of availability there. But I think that's about it. Marco's also joining. Nito, good to see you. Matthew, still working through it too. Great stuff. Thank you so much. I'm glad you can join. Glad you're enjoying the class out there on Skillshare. So let's take a look at the entries that we have for this. These are the finals. 2 weeks ago, we already took a look at the concepts. I gave them a challenge. I gave them an outline of the scene to depict. It is a collection, kind of a mashup of different fairy tale characters in a new sort of story. And they had to pick one of the scenes and illustrate that scene. So we looked at their concepts. Now we're going to be looking at their finals. And we're going to start with Jerome. Pop that up. Take that out. Jerome had a really interesting piece. Very moody, very fantastical. This is since the last paint over, I tried to put together what Anna knew. And I had liked about the image direction. I prefer that Alice leads this image. We all know that Peter Pan is heroic and a leader. But what if Alice is a strong one? That's fine. I don't have any problem with that. On the first idea is Alice was more imposing and even on the same level of the ships. Meaning that she's more powerful than the pirates. Not necessarily. Sometimes it is just a proximity issue. There's a lot I want to ask and discuss, and I'm sure that the both of you will cover the issues here. I'm not sure I'll be able to be here again tonight. Okay. This is what we're looking at. I love the different studies going on over here. We just start with that. Oh, I did pull over the concept. This was the concept that was submitted right here. I picked something other than black to draw with. Oh, I have it set to behind. I was trying to do something. There we go. So this one. We like this. We thought that we might be able to get a more dynamic scene down here. There's kind of a lot of dead space. And you were playing around with the doorway. It wasn't exactly the doorway I had described, but I said that that was okay, that you could go that direction. I think that fit well enough. And these are sort of neat ideas. I love the idea like it's a clock on the top. That's kind of cool. And we've got some other floating shapes. I love the clouds kind of coming in and out of that, playing with that idea. So there's a couple of things that I really like and a couple of things that personally I would probably ask to see change. The first one is it is just overly dark. This, even on my monitor with the monitor at a decent brightness, a lot of this is running into the same sort of values. A good way to check it is you can squint halfway, not like all the way because it's can't see anything. But if you squint halfway, what it's going to do is remove a lot of the detail. and it's going to average similar tones together. It's just kind of the way that it works. And so does it work like that? Not really. I lose a lot of this, just sort of blurs together. The other way to check is if it's working very well is to make it very small. And this is where I think we're running into some problems, is that it's not reading well in a squint or when it's small. And let's try to change that with the values. I'm going to go over to the values and I'm going to add a levels adjustment. This is controlling the darkness of the image, only the darkness, no chroma, no saturation. This is the bright end of the spectrum, noted by the white under it, and the black end of the spectrum, noted by the black under here. So you can see that most of the image is in that deep dark area. There are your mid darks to darks. And we have almost no lights and very little midtones. So I'm going to see about pushing this up. Maybe bringing, I want a little more contrast, a little more brightness. Then we can adjust this. I really don't need it to affect the rest of the image. So I'm going to use my layer mask to get rid of that. And I also don't need to blow out the gold. So I can just paint that out with the layer mask, bring that back to where it was originally. And that gets us the purity of that gold, because that yellow needs to be a bit darker in order to have that vibrancy. So immediately we can see that sort of change on the image. And that seems nice. Now, something else we can do is pick out any other places where darkness might be good. Here, I feel like the ships are getting too lost, again, in those values. So it may be worth coming up here and actually just painting and getting the shadowed end of those ships a bit darker. Now, whether it's completely realistic or not, we don't really care about in this style. Semi-realism is good enough for what we're going for. So that allows a bit more pop there, say more readable. Yeah, exactly, Keoki. What we're looking for is that visual readability, and that's the word. There we go. It's just a lot more clear what we're looking at. Now, the focus of the image has also changed, and this is where there could be potentially an issue. I'm not going to be up in arms about it, but if this was a book cover, this probably wouldn't go through, because the characters are so small that I have to stop to look to even see that they're there. We've got Bagheera here, but if I didn't know that that was a large cat, I wouldn't be sure what that was. I might be able to guess it, but I also couldn't know if that wasn't just a blowing flag in the foreground or a piece of rock sticking out. There's not enough clarity for me to know that that's what that is. The other thing I find a little odd is when we had talked last time, Anna and I had both, I think it was Anna with me, Anna and I had both said that we liked the design, and the more dynamic design was having Alice like larger in the foreground and having the sizes of them get smaller as they go back. In this case, they're so small that that would not be, probably would not be acceptable to an art director at a publishing company, because Peter Pan and Alice are both very recognizable characters, and you're probably going to sell it on that fact, and not just on the environment. But at this point, this is your own thing, Jerome. And so you can do what you want with it, because we're not obviously sending this to a publishing company. But I did want to make note of that. The other thing is, this is kind of taking on a different life. Right now, that looks more like a wine bottle. It has that shape like this, and like it has a cork on the top. We've lost the keyhole. It's no longer a keyhole. It's not even anything that resembles a keyhole. And I feel like that is something that definitely would need to be changed because the keyhole, just as a visual element, brings about more mystery. It brings about the idea of more story, of something to be unlocked. And this looks more like just a giant, uh, almost like a stained glass window. And it doesn't evoke the same feeling. It also feels solid. It feels like you can't go through it. And I think that was one of the best things about some of these other concepts was the feeling like things were passing in and out of this barrier. And it made you want to go through that barrier. So if it were me, those are the changes I'd be looking to do. The general scene here is really nice. I'm loving the ships. I'm especially loving this. This is so good. This is better than just random shipwrecks or random rocks. We've got a lighthouse. We've got a little hut. We've got boards and walkways, and this is the stuff of imagination, and that's really nice. I do also like your breakup of the clouds in front of the starscape. Again, excellent choice. I'm really into that. Nito says, hey, Swatches, if one of your commissions is meant to be printed, how do you approach the value range of the illustration? Is it true that as a rule of thumb, you must assume it will be print slightly darker? Yeah, in my experience, prints do not show up as well as what you see on the screen. So generally you need to get a bit more above the midtones, get out of the darks. If you want to check it, what you could do, and I've done this before, is you can make an adjustment layer. I'll come over here. Let's grab the layers. I'm going to make an adjustment layer. I'm going to put to levels. And you actually want to decrease the contrast a little bit. So you can grab the black. See, if I move the black up, it's going to average everything to gray. And that's what we want to do. We want to average out so that the blacks aren't going to be quite as black as you want. And the whites aren't going to be quite as white as you want. We're just moving that in a little bit. Not a big change, just a little bit. And then the other thing you can do is you can go to Vibrance, and you can drop that Vibrance down a bit. Maybe to 10 or so. And then that is a better indication of what it would probably look like if it got printed. So getting the saturation just a little high and getting the contrast a little more distinction between the colors and between the objects with the values, particularly with the values. Good point. Good point. Certainly something to keep in mind. And yeah, that is just one of those quick checks that you can do at the end of your project in order to have an idea of how it might print. Now, you could also mention to your art director if you're sending it in and say, this looks pretty good on my monitor. I'm afraid it might get a little dark. If it's looking a bit dark for you, let me know. I can brighten it up. But some companies will also make those kinds of adjustments on their end if they need to. They don't ask you for it unless it's major. I mean, if they're going to be they're not going to be repainting it. But if they need to do a quick value or saturation tweak, sometimes they do that on your end. But try to keep them from having to do extra work if you can. Okay, so yeah, that would be my feedback. I think the way that you have illustrated it is excellent. Yeah, there we go. Bring it back up to where it was. I think that the general look of it is excellent. I love the environment. I love the ships. I feel like we're really lacking on the characters. We're not connecting to the characters, and I personally would find the keyhole doorway being a lot more interesting than the bright glass kind of window that we have now. So But thank you so much, Jerome, for joining in, and I hope that you found this helpful. Next up, we have George. I'm so used to saying George because the other guy pronounces his George. Writes that. So Jorge, perhaps, would be the correct term pronunciation. Oh, I need somewhere in the middle computer. There we go. Okay, got some notes down here. So I listened to what you had to say and made this. I use element from the first mission, like the pirate ships. Everything else I change or modify. I made the characters smaller, made the door a lot bigger, and for the colors, I tried to make it more cohesive. Found an illustration with color I like and tried to use only those colors. For the title, I found that this text really liked. Decided to use it. At first, I meant the text to be black and white. Yeah, I'm not too concerned about the text, but I do like that you left room for the title. That's something else that the artist needed to do on their concepts, is leave room for the titles, because this is a fictional book. Well, let's talk about a couple of things here. I have a lot better idea now that I see this of what you were trying to go for with your wild colors in your color study. And let's pull up here with your inspiration image. That's a nice inspiration images using all those crazy colors. But I think that there is perhaps a more effective way to use those colors. We'll take a look at that in a moment. But let's pull up on your characters here. This is particularly nice. I like the way that these have been handled in this rendition, using this style, because you do have a very, it's like a illustrative, yeah, it's just kind of a super imaginative, non-realistic mashup of styles and colors. Yeah, Keoki, very magical, ethereal. So I have a much better idea of what you're trying to do with it now. And these are working really well. There's just enough in those silhouettes to understand. And you've chosen very nice silhouettes that I instantly get what the pose is from these. So that back a little bit. You did some different color studies. These different ways. Okay. I'm gonna think this one's fine. Yeah. If there's anything else I missed out here. Some of this was from the earlier one. Again, this is another one where I feel like the values are kind of getting out of the way here. This would appeal to younger kids up to teens who don't want to admit they think it's cool. Yeah, there's definitely an age limit. This much pinks is going to turn away almost all the boys. So we might want to try to balance that out a little better. Oh, I did want to note, you've got some really nice ships going on here. Take a look at some of these ships. These shapes are non-trivial. They're not trivial. There's some complex stuff going on here. And I've had to draw a couple of ships, and those frames are complicated. And it looks like maybe you had some good reference images. You had 3D models going from. I love this. Please, people, do more of this. Do your homework. Don't guess what a ship looks like at that angle. It gets something, and look at it. Whether you change it up a bit or not, that's fine. But get the basic form, because ships have very complex curves. Everything is curving one direction or another. There's not hardly any flat surfaces, straight flat surfaces that are plumb on a ship. So I feel like those came out pretty well. Okay. This I thought was also worth mentioning. In the original concept, the characters were very dull in their poses. And so I was like, well, if we're going to have them doing that, we might as well just make them small. But these are such good silhouettes, like even this could work. With this choice of silhouettes, we get to learn a lot more about these characters. And so if you did want to use more of that composition with them, I think it could work. But this, I mean, this works as well. Uh, Personally, if it was me, I'm usually going to go for the closer, bigger foreground character to heighten the size variance. So there's like large, medium, and small. But that is also just kind of my thing as well. Okay, so looking at this image down here, you notice a couple of things of what they're doing. And let's see if we can maybe apply this a bit better on yours, which is everything being lit is all of the warm colors. It is the yellows, the pinks, and the oranges, and the warm violets. And then everything in the shadow or the background is the cool colors. We have your cyans, your blues, and running into your blue magentas. And that's not really what we've got here. Here we've got the same colors, but they don't follow the same dynamic. Where, and also the values, if you do notice here, the values do work on this image. I'm actually curious. Let's make a new layer color. See, that image still works with values, and the colors are a nice pop, but you don't necessarily have to have them to understand. Now yours, if we compare those, it doesn't really work. It doesn't really work because everything is using the same values. There's no plane depth between anything, and there is also not a shadow light difference between anything. You've got a lot of things in the scene that are as bright as your light source. And you've got a lot of things in the scene that are as dark as your darkest shadows. So we could probably get a little more clarity out of it. I'd be curious if I'm going to try an overlay layer and see if that will give me what I need. No. I'm curious if we couldn't do something similar to theirs, which is getting a darker background that was based more in the cool range. And then letting all the elements being lit, such as the ships, take on the warmer color being hit by the keyhole light, doorway light. I'm using a hard light layer because the hard light is going to carry a lot of saturation with it, and it is going to work a bit like a color layer by carrying a lot of color and not move the value too much depending on the value that I have selected. And then we can bring in some more like orange tones. I feel like the gradients here are perhaps too perfect. We could actually break it up, have some more kind of hand-painted tones in there. Oh, and I do notice the faces on the back of the ships. I think that's an excellent. Those are one of those small things that you don't notice on the first glance, but it's a fantastic extra little detail. I, for one, do appreciate it. So now we actually have something for the different colors to contrast against. Some of them are more warm, some of them are more cool. And then let's see about, I want to make a multiply layer. We darken some of the space around it and just popping that down a little bit in value. Then we have some more contrast. The road is also staying the same value all of the way. And so what could be helpful is if we actually let the road be a bit darker and let it lighten as it goes in. And this will sort of use a gradient to guide us into the image. And we're trying to give the idea that they are traveling from a place of more shadow to more light. They're heading towards the light source. And also, just adding some variation where maybe it's brighter in the middle, where the light's coming down on it. And then there's a little variation where it gets more shadowed along the edges. Yeah. Then if you want your nice warm tones to be hitting some of these clouds, we can do that, but it's going to be more like a straight color on the edge and not just a slight tint. Here we want violet. Here we have more of the strength from the values helping support the image. Exactly where that is on the ship, the hole is. But yeah, so that's kind of what we're looking at as far as some of the changes. Just trying to get a bit more value, some more separation between like background, foreground colors in order to get the stuff to pop a bit more. And if you wanted to play around with those silhouettes being bigger and in the foreground, then I think they could probably hold up. Because it's more of a stylization anyway. It's not super realistic. You may want to actually get... You may want to get Peter a little bit bigger. The perspective is pretty big between the two of them. And you may also thin him down a bit. He's only like 13 or 14. So right now he looks more like 18. He's more muscular. And so we may probably want to just change that up a little bit so he's not quite as mature. And Alice, I'm trying to think of Alice. I'm wondering if Alice shouldn't have her head a little bit bigger in order to make her feel a bit more adolescent. Like maybe she's getting a little too old. That's something else you might want to play with. But all in all, really, really lovely, fantastical image. I hope this, was helpful. Do always keep in mind, values are extremely important, no matter how crazy you go with the colors, no matter how crazy, the background with star fields and golden doorways and floating pirate ships. The values still have to work. And otherwise, a lot of the design looks good. I like the door at the tilt. I think that's, cool. Keeps it changing up, keeps it kind of actiony. With the roadway, I was just kind of looking at this. I was like, something about the road. The road is perhaps a little too perfect. I'd almost want to see it do more like kind of follow this pattern, kind of going back and forth. And it sort of migrates around, not perfect right up the center, but it sort of migrates as it goes up from side to side, that sort of thing. So that's what we've got there. Thanks so much, George or Jorge, however you say yours. Glad to have you in the challenge. Keoki. Now, Keoki, you are in the chat. I do realize that. So if you have comments or questions, you can just put those in while we're taking a look at it. Back to you on white. I need to pick something darker. There we go. This is the first time participating in something like this. I got a late start. Only found about the challenge when you streamed the last entries. Don't know what to do with the background. Having trouble finding good references and don't know what to look for with the overall style. I know I can still need a lot of study on fundamentals, but I'm not sure what to focus on at my level. I would honestly have to see more of your work to see, what you would need to work on as far as fundamentals. But let's take a look at what we have here. You're doing the one where it's basically the scene is filled up with the characters. And for that one, it's sort of a unique way to do a book cover where you're trying to fill as much of the frame as possible to a high degree with just the subject of the people. And this is a way that you can arrange an image that isn't the way that you maybe photograph something. It's not the way that you would do a normal image. What you try to do is get very personal and be very close to the characters so that everything is just the characters. You're not really establishing a background. Now, to that end, what I did is I grabbed each of the characters and I cut them out. Now, we consider enlarging them, right? So, put a white background just so we're not overlaying. And we normally have these guys a lot smaller. But what you can do is just cut them out and move them so that you're trying to feel more of the frame without necessarily covering up or losing anything pivotal. So like, we don't necessarily need to see all of the hat to know that it's a top hat. Top hats are very recognizable. Peter's sword, I don't need to see the top of the sword. If I can see part of the sword, I know that it's a sword. Same thing with like Bagheera. I only need to see the head of the panther to know that it's not a panther, it's a leopard. Which, are they those the same thing? Now that I'm thinking about it, is panther and leopard the same thing and I'm just not realizing? So that would be more of what you could do. I'm seeing if you couldn't maybe arrange these differently so that you've got a better dynamic between the way that they're arranged. Is there a way that we can lay them out where we get more space covered and have less background? That's where my head would be at. You may even consider adjusting these so that they're in a different orientation. Like she's back over here. We could have him here. And then Bagheera could practically just be going the other way. Yeah, and so you could almost have like three of them doing this. I feel like perhaps that is making a little better use of the overall space. Panthers and leopards are similar but have distinct differences. Okay. So I know that there are some big cats that are actually the same. They've got different names and then I did not know which ones. So in this case, what we are trying to do is just fill as much as possible with the character. And not everything has to fit in frame. Homework. Should have done that on the homework. Well, this is still part of the concepting phase. You're still working on the composition, the overall idea, how you're going to compose the scene, that sort of stuff. So you're in a good place right now. This is what you need to be doing. So, and then you would have the title, something like that down there. So, mountain lion and cougar. That's what it is. Panther and jaguar are interchangeable. Remember which one is interchangeable with panther. Okay. We also have the thing where, and this is a small thing, but these are all facing, these two are facing out, and this one's kind of facing back in. This one has them all facing into each other, and I feel like maybe it allows you to actually bounce between them more if they're facing towards each other, because you kind of follow one eye line to the next. You follow her eye line down to him, and he's looking off, but he's also facing this way. So you could follow this way as well. And then that's looking down to the title. Following that flow, I feel like may work a little better than this one, where she just leads you off. He pretty much leads you off, and then he, I guess, would lead you to the title. But I think you were putting the title up here. So, something to consider on that. A couple of other things. This is another one where Peter is lengthening out a bit more than what I would expect for somebody 13 or 14. And we want to get a little more of the juvenile feel to him. Hasn't really hit puberty yet. I'm going to grab the head, make the head bigger. That is one of the simplest changes that you can do, is to make the head larger compared to the body. Doing that. Then something else that really happens is the lengthening of the abdomen. We could try to shorten that up a little bit. Not as much as the legs. The legs definitely extend a lot. But by doing that sort of thing, we make him feel a bit younger. He's got more of that proportion. Most of the characters are drawn from adults. Yeah, and sometimes that's the case. Sometimes you can't find a kid pose photo to work from. And so you just need to do a little research or a little editing to figure out what the differences would be. And often you can guesstimate pretty close. We're also looking at changing the arms, maybe not that well defined. You're looking at maybe a simpler curve, right? He's not pumping weights, you know. Make him a little more roundy. Then when we're getting to the face, it could mean that we're going to get a bit bigger with the eyes. Now, we're not doing the eyelashes because I want to make him look girl. Iconic element of that. We just want to get the eyes a little bigger, again, just to make him feel a bit younger. The eyes are proportionally larger on the head. That line. On Alice, maybe this is your sort of style thing, but I'm feeling like, at least just talking about the drawing of Alice here, that we've got too little distance between where the ear comes and where the eye is. Even if you're stylizing realism, there's quite a bit of space between the eye and the ear. And we're really slimming it up here. So let's consider getting that ear, dropping it back. Allowing it to go more back here, because we're looking up, that makes the ear look like it's getting low. That can allow us to have jawline stretch out a bit more. And this is the other thing, like her eyes are getting really close together. And if we move that ear back, it actually gives us a little more room to move that eye over. And allow there to be a bit more space between those eyes. And I feel like the nose is perhaps getting a little more to this side. I'm going to just bump that nose over a little bit. Those are some changes I'd be looking at doing. Trying to get slightly better proportions to it. But keeping a lot of the same shapes. I love the sort of shapes you're working with. I love the way that you simplified that nose. I love the simple forms of the face, the way that you've handled the eyes there. I think those are very nice. One of the things with the hat, though, don't feel like it's sitting on her head right. Like I kind of feel like it's sitting forwards, like it's angling forwards. But I don't feel like it's sitting on her head that way. Yeah, and so like there's no bill that actually goes over her forehead, and that seems odd. Wherever her head would actually stop is where it's going to sit on that, and then the hair is going to come out. What can be helpful is if I'm going to put a white layer here. It's too hard to follow some of the white layer. There, like that. You can treat it like that, and then we're looking at the angle that it's setting on her head, and perpendicular to that, I mean, it's kind of going up this way. I'd probably exaggerate this shape even more. Get it extra little at the bottom, extra big at the top. A nice curve there. Pretty close. And then it has a build that goes all the way around. So we need to see it going all the way around. Now you can twist it a little bit if you want it to be like a little low here and a little high there, but it's still yeah, I feel like maybe it's getting too long out that way. But that's if you want it to be very twisty. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way. I would probably get rid of this. I see that's in your sketch, but it sort of messes with the silhouette, and having this stick out there sort of messes with the silhouette. If you're going to have it stick out, let it stick out after it gets from the base. So that's sticking out more like that. And then you can have stuff there. And that way we keep a cleaner silhouette to the hat, because that's going to read much easier. This is a place where we could have some hair action going on. Hair is like flowing around her. Right? This is a great action thing. Whenever your characters aren't actually moving, try to find something that can be moving. This can usually be cloth or fabric. In this case, cloth, fabric, or hair. No, I'm saying that. Hair or fabric. Cloth as well. So you've got like this sort of hair float thing going on that could be back there. I'm liking the rapier. That feels good. Pommel there. He's got like kind of a wild hair thing going on. I think that works for him. We are sort of messing around with different designs as you're going. Consider how you want to stick with one or the other. We have this super angular triangle hair, and then we've got wavy hair, wavy hair, wavy hair, wavy hair, wavy hair. And we pretty much need to go one or the other. If you want to do the spiky, like DBZ hair, you can do that. I think probably the wavy hair may look a bit better. Make it have a bit more life to it. It's kind of sticking around, just a big mop of hair there on the top, you know. Something a bit like that. This is one we could definitely see like some stitches and patches and stuff on his clothes. I was looking at the Panther here. A couple of things to look at on the Panther is it's another one where pay attention to the spacing between the eyes and the size of the eyes. The eyes are actually quite small compared to the adult body, the adult head. And here the eyes are actually probably a bit big for the head, and maybe a bit too close. So if we make the eyes a little smaller, which they seem a bit flatter on the top and more rounded on the bottom, and different eyes of different animals in different ways. So like, look at that eye there on the right. Seems like it's almost straight here, and then kind of comes down like that from this angle, right? And then on the other side, it's curved just a little bit on the top, and then it comes down. The other thing to look at is what is the angle of the eye tilt. Now he's pretty much straight to us, so you want to look at that inside corner and that outside corner. Look at the inside corner and the outside corner, and look at that tilt. Now, is it flat? No. But is it super angled? No. But it's got a moderate angle to it. Now I feel like yours have a much more severe angle to them, which just ends up making it feel not quite like this kind of animal. We perhaps moved this eye out a little bit, made it just a little smaller. Flatten that top off a bit more. Same thing here, flatten that off, not quite so much angle. And it's dropping down here. We'll have that more space between these eyes. So like that's perhaps a little better. Yeah. And the ears aren't as pointed as a normal cat. They're much more rounded. So look to simplify them, like in a very simple term, they're more like that. They're not as pointed. Notice how big and round they are on the top. Not like most house kitties. House kitties have pointed ears, but a lot of the big cats have blockier ears. I think this is going to get you closer to that Bagheera look. Looks like that jaw is coming way back here. Really big jaw. His head is very wide and kind of squat. Okay, was there anything else? Okay, so say that you made some of those adjustments to the drawing. You consider how you want to pose it to get the characters in there a little better. You could keep the same arrangement and just make them bigger. That can work as well. But as far as what would you do with the background and what else could you do to the scene? Well, this is one where you could add in some of those cards we talked about. We talked about in some of the other ones where you could have the plain cards and they have the different symbols. Like one was the hourglass, right? You could have the hourglass cards around there. We could have some floating around here that has like the Jolly Roger skull on it. Those cards are here. And those could be floating in and out of the scene. Some more in the foreground. Almost like somebody was just raining these like fall leaves. Like, you know, fall leaves just kind of falling around the character. Except for not being leaves, they're cards. Yeah, and so you just got cards, and some of them are overlapping other ones, and they're just floating there in the background. If it were me, I would probably do a really pretty starscape behind them. Colorful, like blue night sky with stars and some clouds. Just something magical. Kind of indistinct and magical, so it has that quick initial feel to it. And then throw some of these cards in. Anywhere where there needs to be, like here, I would probably put a card in this area because there's just not enough visual information to make that interesting. And so we could have some cards kind of floating around, and some of them it could be more turned than other ones. Some of the original Alice illustrations had like this. This is by author Rackham. And he did not the first Alice in Wonderland illustrations, but like the one after that. Early 1907, I believe, is when he did this. So something like that, if that's kind of coming around them, that could be a really excellent background for not going there. Okay, wrap that up. I hope you found that helpful, Keoki. Ruth is the last one we're going to be taking a look at. Guideline on there. She is doing the characters falling. That was one of the options. And let's pull up here. I love these little studies. You're just doing some like little grayscale silhouette studies. These are nice. Did some studies of the characters. I like this Alice outfit. You took the really simple Disney design, made it a bit more elaborate, gave her a bit more personality with it, added in the hat, the laced up little boots. I like it. Oh yeah, that's from Once Upon a Time, isn't it? I never watched, I didn't get to the season where he's in it, but I recognize that being from there. I worked on the Peter's costume. Yep, yeah, that would read as Peter Pan. Got the leopards. Good. Oh yeah, we needed, on the last one, we needed to put some scars on Bagheera. We didn't have any scars on Bagheera, so that needs to be added in. First star to the right. Okay, so they're falling, and we've got some of the playing cards going around them. I assume that you would go on and add the images on the cards. I know what they are. A couple of things that I'm really liking. A couple of things we probably want to make some tweaks to. Peter feels pretty good. I like Peter. He has a nice, I'm falling, but I'm also still kind of in control. And his sword is floating there. That's kind of nice. Her hat's floating off. She's got some the wind blowing up against her dress and stuff. Carrying over that same character design. Those are both working well. And you've got Bagheera doing his little kitty fall. Which, finding images of cats falling. Yeah, okay. One of the things that is bothering me some is this back arm. I'm not sure why that gesture is. Like, I don't know if she is supposed to be interacting with Bagheera. Is she? It almost feels like she's reaching out to like touch Bagheera's face, but I don't know if that's coincidental or that's intentional or if that's a balancing thing. So I would look to have that changed. Either like she needs to be reaching out and grabbing Bagheera's paw, so that almost like they're holding hands, right? But you know, one's the paw, one's the hand, and like, oh, we're falling together. And so that could work. My other thought would be have her reaching up to grab the hat, or just grabbing the tip of it so it doesn't fly away. Yeah, Nito, I'm with you. Peter's pose is really nice. It's got good depth to it. The forms are really excellent. So I'm really good on the Peter. Yeah, but for her, either she's reaching out and she's like holding paw and hand together, or she's reaching up and she's like holding the edge of the hat there. In which case, I feel like this other arm would probably, when you're falling, you have a tendency to spread out. You don't fall and tuck up. When you're in a free fall, you have a tendency to spread out because you're trying to slow yourself down. You automatically try to create a lot of drag. So maybe this arm could even be, you know, back here or out further. Depends what that other arm does. Right now it's fine, but you might need to adjust it if you move the other arm. Okay, other things. Bagheera doesn't, I'm not really getting the fall feel. I'd be curious if you couldn't do, if you hold a cat upside down and you drop them, which obviously nobody hold their cat upside down and drop them. I've got to say that. But if you do, what they will do is they will twist in the middle, and their lower body will stay facing upwards, and their upper body will twist around so it faces downwards so that they can see where to land. Then their lower body will transition with it, and they'll hit on all fours. I almost feel like it might be better to have him in that sort of twisting motion so that it doesn't feel like he's like astronaut kitty in complete control, he's not concerned. That's about what I could think of to get out of Bagheera. Unless Bagheera is like reaching up for the hat. That can be kind of interesting. And he's looking up and he's like, oh, that's important. We need to get that. So he could be doing that. Let's see, what else? With her hair, this is another one where we've got some good motion going on with the, I say straps. Can't be right. On a dress, what do you call the, anyway, the two pieces going there. Having them floating, excellent. I love that. Great way to show motion. But we have like the bangs of the hair that are still floating in front of the face, close to the face as she's in free fall. That doesn't seem right. So all the hair wants to go up. Perhaps we could have, so like even on this one, like the hair is going up. Grab it. Maybe trying to bite the hand to grab it. Yeah, I feel like we could probably get the hair not to be so low on the head there, bring it up. If it does have a tie in the back, that tie is going to shift up because there's no gravity to pull it down. And the hair might be coming up back that way. We're probably going to have the bangs coming up that way there. And the same thing with the dress, which is we could get probably some better curves and have he's kind of blowing a little more there. And then I'd like to see a good way to show somebody is falling, except for Peter, because Peter can fly, and so he can basically be in any position that he wants as he's falling. But for her, having one of her legs kicked out further is a good way to actually show you're kind of out of control. Having like a foot kind of coming out this way and the other one sort of tucked in, that is more of, I mean, that having your rear being lower than your feet is probably more realistic. Instead of keeping it nice and tight. So experiment with trying to get the feet out further. And we can also get layers of that dress. Right? Layers of the dress of all the billowy skirt and stuff coming up this way. And you are getting the idea there, which is all the folds are sort of anchoring around the rear, because that's where it's being pressed against the subject by the force of the air. And then it's wanting to whip out from here. And then that makes that edge real wobbly as it's in the air. Sound effects. Then you would have some on the other side. Even with Peter, though, he might have a bit more of the flappy collar, shirt kind of floating a little bit thing. Not as important with him, though. The cards don't feel random. It's like they're slowly Swirling in a single file. Not sure if that's planned, but it makes the fall feel more controlled. Yeah, I had mentioned that the cards could be used more as compositional tools rather than complete randomness. Almost like they're falling down some sort of tunnel with the cards kind of spiraling around them. Oh yeah, Hellfight. You know, earlier when I was looking at that, I thought about that as well. Maybe make Bagheera with the open mouth trying to catch the hat with his mouth. Yeah, having Bagheera emote, maybe not as much with his body, but with his mouth. Like he's reaching up to bite it, or he's turning to say something. Either one of those might be a good way to get a bit more expression out of Bagheera. With the cards, though, try to keep it so that they're not all the same. Like, all of these are pretty much the same angle. So maybe what we could do is add like another one behind there that sort of is at a steeper angle that's different. Or you could have cards that have got some twist to them. Now they're twisting somehow. And yeah, kind of like twisting in the air somehow, and be a little more interesting than just a rigid kind of rectangle. Not sure what you're planning on do with the lighting. If you could do something like that, that would be cool. I assume that's kind of why you have it in there, with that sort of background, perhaps. But even with the dark background, that could look really, really nice. Alice's face, I think, needs more work. Peter's feels pretty good, but feels like you're perhaps having some trouble with Alice. Do remember, if you're doing it like in Photoshop, you can just rotate the canvas. You don't need to draw it at an angle if that's something that you've been trying. Here we've got really little space between the eyes, and that's going to give an odd expression. Try just moving that out. Whoop. Oh yeah, also, if you have rotated the canvas, like if I hit left, it's not going to go left compared to my viewing angle. It is going to be left compared to what is actually plumb. That is something I forget about, so I'll move it like something else to think about, just when you, like, this is a little thing. Where is Alice? Now you notice the way that they've drawn Alice here. They simplified it in a really nice way, which is, if you're doing a character that is a very simple form character, we're doing it. Let's look at the eye there. That character is facing that way, then essentially you've got like a greater than symbol where the eye is opening up to that side, like that, right? And then you could indicate maybe just the corner of the eye. If it was anime, they would often do that. And then the other eye is essentially doing the same thing. Kind of got an upward curve here. You've got the eyelashes. And it's basically a triangle, right? And the triangle gets wider towards the direction that the character is looking. And you can add, like, you know, if you want the folds over the eyes, and like the eyebrow. And here is, we don't really have that. You're still trying to do like a very front view eye of a character that's really turned. So here we might want to simplify it by trying to make it more of that. And that could be a better simplification of what you're trying to do. And it would get the head turn a bit better. We could get this kind of running together. Now the upper lip doesn't really pull up when you're talking. The upper lip kind of just stays where it is. It's the bottom lip that moves. So we don't want to have that pulled up too much there. Actually want to move the corners kind of up towards that. And then I like that form there with the cheek. You got the little indent there around the chin. That's good. Good there. Like we were talking about, we're probably going to see more of the hairline there as some of the bangs and stuff starts flying around that area. Here is nice and low. Want to be, if you're fairly new, don't know proportions that much, you can kind of follow along the bottom of the nose is about where the ear would be, and then about where the eyebrow would be, and you transition those to the side of the head, and that's kind of where you've got the ear. And Mom, what are you doing? Clint said I had to drop my cat for reference. Yes, but only if you have a leopard. Otherwise, sorry. Go to the zoo and ask them if you can drop their leopard. They'll probably let you to, let you do it for an art project. Okay, well, that's what I've got this episode as far as the feedbacks there. If you guys got any questions, I'll take a moment and take some questions if people have them. We only had the 4 images to look over, and I've kind of covered my thoughts on them. Wonderful selection of different styles and renderings on this. Also, just to be clear, I didn't talk about it at the beginning. There is no more art challenges currently in progress or started. There won't be any between now and the end of the year, which is just a couple of weeks. We'll probably be starting back up in January at some point. But I'm going to be traveling for the holidays, a couple of different places, so I don't want to commit to that, and I know about everybody else's as well. But we should be looking forward to it. I will likely be putting out some polls on the Discord, maybe the Facebook group, as to what people want to be doing in some of the challenges. And also, I may change it up so that the challenges are more like a class thing, where it's not just kind of do it however you want, but I'm going to actually outline the number of different studies that you do, the different kinds of studies that you do, the reference photos that you need to take, and give you more steps to follow. And it could also be maybe a 6-week challenge instead of a 4-week, and we would be doing 3 feedbacks during the course of it. So that's something that I'm looking at as far as changing it up a little bit. Avoid Facebook like the plague. No, Keoki, I completely understand. I completely understand. I use it mainly for swatches. Yeah, it's kind of fallen off. But the Discord's doing great. Come out, hang out with people out there, and you're going to find a lot of friends out there that love the same sort of stuff you do. Okay, well, I don't see any questions. I guess we'll wrap it up there. Oh, he said, sharing details for new artists to think about, like the value before printing would be great. Those things that someone should think about early in their professional career. Yeah. And like I said, new video coming out on Monday. It'll premiere. It's like a 12-minute video with some tips on doing the black and white to color painting process. Several things that's come up a couple of times, and I never just did a standalone video to talk about it. Would love to know how you would practice composition. Actually, that's a good question. A couple of different ways that you can practice composition. And one would be to Well, actually, let's grab some white space here. There we go. One would be to do studies from cinema. So I'm going to jump over. I don't own all these images that I'm going to show you. We jump over to cinematography. Let's go to DVD screen captures. And there's a bunch of sites where you can go get screen captures from movies. It's like screencaptures.com or something like that. But there's several of them. And it's like a screen capture every 5 seconds through all the movies, and you can just scan through the movies and find good screen captures. If you want to see some good cinematography that is composition and lighting, check out the original Blade Runner. I was just looking at that. That's got some crazy good cinematography. Like here's Hellboy 2, right? And so each one of these scenes was intentionally composed with the character, with the action going on in the scene, with the lighting, so it all makes sense. And doing little thumbnail studies. And we're just talking about pencil sketches, right? Or line sketches on the computer. You don't need to do full value ones, but value ones can be helpful. We're just learning how to kind of lay out a scene. Those are one good study. Something else is just to get the same scene. Maybe it is a knight press to the edge of a hill or a bankment, and he looks out over at the dark castle in front of him. Okay, well, there's a bunch of different ways that you could do that. And one of the ways that you do that is just getting a bunch of rectangles. Each one of these would be frame. And each one of these needs to use a different composition. I do have the composition ebook. One of the things I mentioned in that is that you can experiment by using different compositional patterns or shapes. Like you can use letters as a compositional pattern. Use like the letter A, which is a nice triangle. As a compositional pattern, you could use like G. G could be a good compositional pattern. And you're wanting to arrange things in the scene so that they follow that pattern. So in this case, maybe there is a cool old tree, roots sticking out there. And it's kind of coming up and over this. And we've got our guy standing here kind of in the foreground. Right, he's got like arm here and he's got his sword out and he's looking out, and there's like this roadway kind of goes out this way, and then you've got like the castle back there in the background, mountains or hills or that, and then you've got like tree branches and stuff coming out this way. Maybe we've got some stone headstones, you know, like cemetery headstones. Maybe there's a broken one coming out from between the tree roots. And there I just composed the scene that I needed based on a compositional pattern. And this gives you sort of a mix between sheer creativity and also a good framework to work in. And there's other ones like the letter S and the letter C and different letters and one and stuff. And you can try to just go through the same scene or similar scene. Like maybe they don't all have the tree. Maybe they all don't have the headstones. But they all have a distance of the dark castle in the background and the main character standing there and some path between them. And so, yeah. That would be a good study. How do you turn objects in perspective, please? We're talking about Asian Fox, is this? How... Oh, the other thing, if you're going to be doing these studies, is to consider you want to change the viewpoint. One of the things that people don't do very much is they don't change the height of the camera. So that would be on my list. Like if I was going to do composition studies, have one where I'm going to do a very high view and do a eye level, like man view, and then do your worm view where you're really low looking up. And each one of those is going to give you a drastically different feel of that same scene, and it's worth playing around with each one of those. But Agent Fox says, how do you turn objects in perspective, please? I assume that you mean, like, how do you draw things in perspective? Like, how do you think in 3D and draw in 3D? Or are you just talking about how to use perspective to draw objects? Can you clarify that? How do you rotate them in perspective? Have I ever worked with Riot? No, I have never worked with Riot. I would consider doing that. I want to. I actually reached out to him like 4 years ago or something, but I've got to say that they've got a really good team. They don't need me. They're doing just fine. But if the opportunity arose, I would probably take it. No, how to rotate an object while keeping the perspective. I'm surprised you painted a piece for Smite. Yeah, I did a couple of different pieces marketing for Smite. I'm still not sure if they've all been released. I did Pele, and I did, what was like the Greek goddess of battle? I forgot what her name was. Bologna. I did one of her, and I did one of another one, but I don't know that's been released. For example, a flying box that is rotated a bit. Okay, well, I'm a little confused with the question because I can think of a couple of different ways to take that. Well, like if we've got a box, and we've got that, as we move our part. And you're saying, how would you rotate it? Well, you could almost just put it in the frame of the other box. And if it helps to draw it right to begin with, then you could do that. I mean, if it needs to be super accurate, like I can just move my vanishing point over and just say, well, it's now aligned at this angle, right? And now, I mean, if you need to do multiple versions, then all you're doing is you're moving the vanishing point over, because the vanishing point is going to move depending on the plane. There's going to be a vanishing point for every plane that it's facing. Downward plane isn't going to change in this case because it's not changing that aspect of it. Or am I not answering that correct for your question? Otherwise, there's exercises that you can do in order to help think in 3D better. Yes, thanks. How about the other axis? Other axis. So, like if you're rotating it like this way? Yeah, I almost need to have a longer conversation about that. A lot of times you can really go off in a perspective. I'm going to just give you like my honest answer. My honest answer is I eyeball a lot of stuff. And I think a lot of people do. And if you want to be super accurate, like 100% accurate, yeah, you can run perspective lines and figure out anything. But there's even advanced perspective stuff that I would have to go study it because I don't know how to figure out some stuff. like cast shadows with rounded objects gets really complicated. And if it's not something that you do on a consistent basis, uh, you really have to study to learn it. The other thing is, just from a practical standpoint, there's very few times that I've really needed to dive into that. I think it's important for concept artists, but illustration, you don't need to go too deep. That's what I've heard from other objects. I mean, knowing basic perspective is helpful for everybody, because it just keeps your simple sketches and your drawing more accurate. You can put things together better. And advanced, yeah, once you get to advanced stuff, there is a reason people use 3D programs and also models. Like, I mean, like James Gurney, about everybody's familiar with him, right? James Gurney did all the Dinotopia books, and he did several great instructional books, Light and Color, Imaginative Realism. I mean, the guy's way more talented than me, skilled than me. And if he's going to draw something, he doesn't guess it. He makes an entire maquette, and he makes a model so that he knows what it's supposed to look like, and then he draws it based on that. So we can supplement crazy, perspective line work with subjects, references. Because otherwise, you're basically just working as a CAD program. You're just a human CAD program, and to me, that's not interesting. I will definitely run a couple of perspective lines to work out the basic perspective of like a building. If I've got like a big building in the background, I'm going to run my perspective lines so that I have an idea of it. But I may not run perspective lines for every single little thing on that building. If I've got something nearby that I know is accurate, I'm probably just going to base it on that. I don't know if that helps you out a lot, but there are some people that love perspective. To them, it's almost like a science that they love. And if you want to go deeper into it, I'm gonna probably just recommend you go check out some of their classes. I can get to I know a functional level of perspective, and I can answer most of your basic questions, but there is tricks and stuff that I don't know. That's my honest. Okay, well, it's about 3:30. I think we're going to wrap it up there. I am considering a Q&A video coming forwards to do in the near future. And I'd like to get questions submitted beforehand so that I can go ahead and kind of prep my thoughts. But I will put that out to the community and let you guys know when that's going to happen. And if you have questions like this, then that's exactly the sort of thing I'd love to address in a Q&A video. So thank you so much for joining. I will see you guys Monday in the video, but live I will probably catch you next year. Everybody stay safe during the holidays. Enjoy yourself and your family, and until you see you next time.